Our guest today is a U.S. men's national team veteran who signed pro at 16 and built a career across Europe and MLS. Now focused on developing the next generation, Jozy Altidore joins us on the soccer ladder.
Awesome.
Welcome to the soccer ladder.
Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to have you here in person.
Very happy to be here. Very cool setup you have here. I love it.
Oh,
It's very
thank
cool. Yeah,
you.
yeah.
So last week we had our 30th episode. That was like a big milestone, and now you're our first guest here in the studio.
Look at that. I
Like,
love
so
that.
we
Look
have
at
another
that.
milestone
Yeah,
going
that's
on.
very cool. I'm
So,
honored, by the way. I'm honored to be here.
no.
So,
When you look back at the kid who signed pro at 16,
yeah.
what did coaches see in you so early?
So interesting. I love, first of all, going down memory lane. It went so fast. It's crazy to see how quickly time goes. But I think they saw in me a bubbly young kid that, loved being part of a group, um, loved working in like a team setting, had some ability obviously when it came to shooting and just overall being in the right position at the right time, which is useful for a striker. So, and then a rare combination, I think, of like athleticism, understanding of the game, and they really helped me harness all that. So I was really lucky to have good coaches and good developers early on.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
That's so important.
absolutely.
Speaking of which, I feel like there's so many kids signing younger and younger. I mean, you were one of the first, right?
Yeah.
Like, but so many kids are signing younger and younger. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I love to see it. It's twofold. Obviously, it's a good sign of where development is going in our country, right? And how the game is growing to have so many young kids, taking and picking up the knack for wanting to get better at the game and see a career in it. But you also want to, err on the side of caution, right? We want kids to still be kids. We have to make sure that the experience still, lets them enjoy life and not feel pressures too early, because there's a balance of being competitive, wanting kids to have to obviously grow and get out of their comfort zone when it comes to competing, but the other element of still giving them experience of being kids, right? And enjoying every day and the joys of being a kid, which is like living carefree, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what I'm like dealing with right now
yeah.
is Liam's 12 going to be 13 and I think it's a lot more committed now. Like he does 5 days a week with Red Bulls. We have one day with a private trainer. And so really there's only one day off. So like how do you find that like that's hard, right?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely competitive, and you're going through it now. It's like how do you find that balance to obviously feeding what Liam, wants and his desire to play, but also making sure that he has fun and has enough downtime. And so I think it's definitely something everybody's trying to look at because I think the kids so young, they're like sponges, right? They want to learn, they want to get better. They're obsessed with improving and they have the energy to do it. So it's definitely trying to harness that, but I think clubs are finding different ways. You got to find that balance, and as parents, I feel like we're always constantly trying to figure things out,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
yeah,
And you're a parent,
I'm a parent.
correct?
Yeah, I have a son, 11 years old. So
Does he play soccer?
he doesn't. He doesn't. Not yet. You never
Yeah.
know, but he does have an interest in it. So he loves to watch and go to games with me. So we try to stay active there.
Interesting. Do you feel like that's a good thing that he doesn't play?
Yeah, I actually think so because like it's allowed me to like completely, it's we had that bond together, so he's been able to walk on the field with me, which is important to me.
Yeah.
Although he was young, we have those memories that he'll always be able to have. And it's nice to like now as the game consumed me, right? Right, since I was basically 5 years old to now be able to do different stuff and like, travel more, spend time with my parents and my family has been really rewarding. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so important. What did adults get right in your early development?
I think the aspect of like, having fun, never making me feel like it was too serious. I think my parents were instrumental in that. Like my dad was, although he got me in the game young, like my dad, he recorded the World Cup 90, I think it was 94. He put it all on VHS. That's how he introduced me to soccer. So I grew up as a young kid sitting on my couch learning about Haji and all these different players that played at that World Cup. And that's how I got into it. But looking back, my dad did it in a way where it was fun. I got to learn
Yeah.
about the different countries, the World Cup, the different stadiums, and so it was pretty cool how he did it. And then even taking me to practice into games, like he made sure I didn't miss sessions, training sessions. But again, it was always fun. Like I never ever felt pressured or anything
Yeah.
like that, which I think is important.
Yeah. So, what advice do you have for parents?
Have fun, okay?
Yeah.
Make sure you're having fun. Make sure you're being part of the fun for your kids. Like it's one thing to want the best for them, to want them to go to these big clubs. I get it, but at the end of the day, you're building a little person, right? And so you want to make sure that person has all the tools and emotionally sees that, they're just not being pressured to do something. I think that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Hi, Josie. I have some questions for you. What do Academy players misunderstand about the pro pathway?
Hi, Liam. Thank you for your question, buddy. Sorry I couldn't see you, but I hope you're having a good day at school. So I think the pro pathway and youth development, I think it's tough because you're training at the facility, you're able to see the first team all the time. So it's hard not to directly identify with that. I think again the thing that young players have to understand is the realities about that journey. And so you just want to make sure that you're a sponge, that you're able to learn, whether it be you know when the medical people are talking to you, whether the assistant coaches are talking to you, people that work at the facility. I think it's really important to learn what it's like to exist in an environment that takes you out of the team structure as well, because you learn a ton of life skills that I think you take for granted. So just be a sponge. Make sure you make conversation with everybody. Make sure you're nice to everyone,
Mhm.
and I think it comes back for you tenfold.
Great advice.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Big believer in like kindness and just talking to everyone, being kind to everyone. I mean, that's with everything in life. So
absolutely. Be a
that's,
good person,
yes,
you know? You gotta be a good
right.
person.
When did pressure first feel real?
To be honest, the most pressure, it's an interesting question. The most pressure I've ever felt, I think, was when I went on trial for the national team when I was like, uh, ironically enough, I was going on trial to make it to the residency program. So I was like 14 or 15 years old. They invited me up there for a training. It's like 2 or 3 days of training. And then after that, they made a decision on whether they invited you into the program, at least in my case.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was pretty crazy because never since then in my career was it like a blatant, like, this can change your whole life
Yeah.
if you get into this program, or, you know, who knows, right? Because at that point, that's what it feels like. It's all or nothing. So, and the importance of the national team at that time. So, ironically, as a kid, that was probably because, I felt all the sacrifices that my parents did for me, driving me to practice. And, I was understanding to see how we were living. It wasn't bad, but like, my parents were working really hard, right? They were at their max limit. And so I just saw it as an opportunity. So I just knew I had to take it.
Love that. And how
Yeah.
old were you at that time?
Yeah. I was like 14. It's pretty crazy.
That's wild. That's pressure.
But like again, my parents didn't put that on me. It was just me like recognizing the crest and like at that time how like there weren't youth national teams all around. Like you only saw them at like a Dallas Cup or something where you're like, wow, it's the national team. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So they had this aura about them. So that was bigger than any club team. Like now you have all the academies, it's a bit different. But so yeah, it was a big deal.
Difference between pressure that builds versus breaks a player.
That's a good question. I think there's definitely a balance. And when we talk about like competitive environments for young kids, you have to create an environment that helps them build, right? Especially when you have players in a competitive setting. So how can you put them in moments every day where you're continuing to push them, but they feel that they're being heard, respected and treated fairly? Because you're a lot of cases training young men, young women, right? And
Yeah.
so that's important. And then to the second part of your question, you have to build, and then the other side is, it's tough because things are getting so competitive, but how can we now, as we transition kids, put them in a place where they're still around the sport, they're still around the team, they're still doing things that they feel a part of it. I think it's not good enough anymore to just say, if you don't make the team, then there's no future here for you. I think, as we transition it to, from being a soccer player to living in life, I think for young kids to have the pathway into working in sports, to being around sports, I think could start at the youth level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of your former players we had on, Michael
Okay.
Bradley,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he said the academy is not the only pathway. He's like, someone you can go play anywhere. There's always a team waiting for you.
It's true.
So I feel like that's such a good reminder. Like, and even if you're not like on the academy today, doesn't mean you're not going to be tomorrow or, and vice versa. Like, everyone has like a different journey.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. No, agreed. Shout out to Michael Bradley. Red Bulls, man. Shout out to Michael Bradley and Red Bulls. What a start.
Speaking of which, in doing my research about you, did you play with the Red Bulls?
I did. Red Bulls my first team ever. I
That is
signed with the Red Bulls.
crazy.
It was the Metro Stars when I got drafted.
Okay,
That's how old I am now. I'm old as dirt.
please.
So it was it was the Red Bulls. Yeah, it transitioned into the Red Bulls, but it was Metro Stars, and then they were bought by Red Bull. So
It's crazy.
yeah,
Some good
crazy.
people have come out of Red
Oh
Bulls.
yeah, Red Bulls is where it's at. Great development pipeline.
You played in Europe. What was the biggest shock moving to Europe?
Biggest shock living and moving to Europe. Everyday life is a big culture shock there. Like, I was 18 years old, still fairly young. You like your friends, you like there are certain spots and things you like to do. And I moved to Spain, and so it was just vastly different than what I was used to. Obviously it's a different language, it's a different culture. So just learning how to be okay with that, you know, like there's a lot of anxiety there in the beginning because it's like, can I do this? And it's funny. There's a lot of elements away from the game that come to mind. That's you start to think, is this something I want to do? Almost, be living out here. So it's a good thing because it really forces you to adapt. Right. And be adaptable. And again, it
Yeah.
takes you back to like learning new life skills. Like sometimes you'll be in an environment where you got to learn how to thrive. And I think that's what it taught me how to do.
Oh gosh, yeah. Adaptable. That's
Yeah.
that's a great word.
Yeah.
I love that word.
Gotta be.
Did you go alone at 18?
I did initially, and that if I could do it all over again, I would have done that.
Okay.
I was like,
Ah,
mom, you got to help dad. You can't, at that time, my mom was and dad were still working. So
yeah.
like, I was like, it literally, I went out there alone, and then after 3 months, that's when I was like, you know what? My mom could hear it in my voice. She's like, I'm coming out there. And it's so funny when she said that at the time. I'm like, Mom, what are you talking about? But like now as a parent, I can
Yeah.
hear it in my
Yeah.
son's voice,
Oh yeah.
so it's full circle. I know exactly how I must have sounded to her. And that was the best thing ever. And then, having my mom next to me and then retired her and my dad, it was kind of a full circle moment. It was cool.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I always joke like with Liam, I'm like, if you ever make it, I'm going wherever you go. Like, like I'm going wherever you go.
Talent gets attention. What creates long careers like the one you had?
Hi, Liam. Great question. I think the biggest thing to think about when wanting to just play for a long time is making sure you're a well-rounded player, a well-rounded teammate. I think those are two aspects that people don't really think about enough. In my case, I was a striker, so I said to myself, how can I be an adaptable striker? Can I score with my left foot, with my right foot? Can I score using headers and free kicks off corners? I wanted to be adaptable, so that way I could try to score in all different moments because there are going to be moments where maybe passes aren't coming how they want, and your only opportunities are going to be free kicks. So I thought of it that way on the field, and then off the field, being a good teammate, I think is important.
Mm,
Even when you're not playing, encouraging the people in front of you that are playing because it's not always going to be that way. The roles are going to be reversed and you're going to want that support too, and understanding that everybody's human. I know it's tough in today's world, but even in a team setting, thinking everybody's going through something, it's not always perfect, and to be kind.
I love that. Everyone is always going through something.
Yeah.
How important is nutrition and sleep? I ask everyone this for longevity.
Yeah, incredibly important. You need to sleep. You need to get your adequate rest. Your body has to recover. It's so important. As much as you want to play hard, you have to rest hard. And really take time to just hang out. Hang with your parents, just kick
Yeah.
it because you don't even know it, but it's just good for your nervous system. It's good for your body to have that reset.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Young kids, did you hear
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Hang out.
Okay. Okay. Let's switch gears.
Okay.
You are on to a new chapter in your life. So, You've experienced player development at every level: national team, MLS, Europe, and now you're involved with Sogility. Did I say that
You
right?
did, you crushed it, so
Okay,
agility.
okay. Which combines training methodology,
Mhm.
technology, and virtual coaching for player development. Families and players hearing about Sogility for the first time, what exactly is it? And what gap in player development were you trying to solve?
Yeah, so quick little background. So yeah, so Agility is a tech-infused soccer training company. And so we have the brick and mortar side of the business where we have the locations that have the technology in the facilities, and basically athletes, players can come in, book a session with a coach and take you through all the aspects of what we think are really important in player development. So vision, agility, first touch, passing, and dribbling. I think I said them all. And so you work on that. You book your session with a coach. You come through the paces, and we also have an athlete development section of the locations where you can kind of train your physical as well as your mental. So we're really excited about that. And then the other side of what we do is Sogility Go. So Sogility Go is an at-home technology. It's a rebound board with a laser sensor that's able to track basically all the touches that you're getting on the ball,
Mm,
the pace that you're hitting them, and your movement. So it's able to track all of that, and you're able to train at home. So we feel with that we're creating an ecosystem where young players, from ages 5, 6 to 18, can get introduced to soccer in a way where the environment is relaxed, they're having fun, they're feeling engaged, and we're gamifying training, and we're finding kids, wanting to come in and beat their high scores and show their friends, and in some
yeah.
cases play their parents. So it's been really fun to kind of find my way of staying in the game and working with kids, and showing them a different way to train different, and get better.
Now, where do you have like actual locations?
We have 6 locations currently up right now: Westfield, Indiana, Medina, Cleveland. We had our grand opening in Livonia, Detroit last weekend, Fayetteville, Georgia, St. Charles, St. Louis, and we're opening up on the west side of Indiana as well, and then opening up in Naples, Florida, in the next few weeks,
Mm.
Virginia, and Oklahoma. So it's going to be a busy end of the year for
Oh
us,
my
but yeah,
gosh.
we should have
Yeah.
11 sites up by the end of the year, and then we launched our Sogility Go, our at-home product as well, last month. So we're really excited. Yeah.
That is exciting. So then my question is like, when are you guys coming to New Jersey? Like, what are you
Yeah.
bringing?
Listen, we got a partner on on a place, Megan, you and me. I think it'd be great. The ultimate place. We can help parents out. No, I think it's definitely on our radar. We're expanded really fast, and in New Jersey, is such a hotbed. It's crazy, right?
It
Like the amount of talent that
it
has come out.
really is.
It's crazy.
Oh
So,
my gosh. So speaking of Sogility Go, where do you see technology helping development?
oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for tech because it offers a new way to train and teach a player. I think for a long time in sports across the board, but especially soccer, I think there was like an one way or a couple of way of doing things. And I think, for some kids, maybe that's not the way they engage, with screens and how kids are behind a tablet or a screen all the time. It's an interesting way to now try to engage kids and get them into soccer by using that to your advantage. So I think, from that aspect, and then from the data aspect, being able to really hone in and find out like what insights our clubs looking for in players, colleges looking for in players. And so it's the next level of how players can kind of see what do I have to improve on, right? It's not subjective anymore
Yeah.
with the tech. You can kind of see, okay, my left foot is not as quick as my right foot,
Yeah.
or I'm not getting as many touches, my body positioning. So the tech and just AI is able to now refine things if we know how to use it.
Liam and I recently received the Sogility Go Rebound ID
Yes, you
Pro.
got it. I'm so happy.
Yes,
All right,
yes.
good, good.
What should young players focus on when using something like that so it improves real decision making and not just repetition?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. That's something that we thought about. Like, okay, we have the technology, but how do we take it to the next level. So we created, I'm pretty sure the only virtual coach actually aspect now of the product. So part of our rebounder is an app where we recorded over 200 videos, myself included, of all of those five aspects that I mentioned to you before. So we kind of guide the player. We take you through an assessment initially when you first download the app and setting up your board. And through that assessment, we are able to kind of design training programs up to the player's preference, how many times a week they want to train. Again, from all aspects, from a novice to somebody like your son Liam, who's had a bit more experience, and create a program that even helps a player like your son, get better and improve in training. So that's where we kind of differentiate ourselves as our virtual coach and our aspect to basically take you through training one on one.
I love that,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
virtual coach
Virtual coach.
idea.
Yeah.
Let's do some rapid fire. Okay. Hardest defender you faced?
I've gotten this question, a couple times,
I'm
and I
sure.
hate having to think about it because it was one of my worst games, but not one of my worst games, but it was a game where this guy, the first time a player got in my head because he was so good, Fabio Cannavaro.
Europe lesson you learned fast.
That's where I really learned about being a good teammate because at that level there's so many good players around. It's just normal, like it's normal to have really really good players on your team, and so you know making sure that you guys connect and support each other, it just raises the bar for the whole environment. And so that's why I really learned that aspect of being a good teammate. It was something I felt came naturally to me, but at that level I really took joy in being the guy that brought guys together.
Confidence or consistency?
For me, I would say consistency at the professional level. That's something that I always thought about, which maybe sometimes affected my confidence. If that makes sense, but it was something that I wanted to focus on because I wanted to be around a long time, and I think I was able to do that. So
Yeah, I do think they go hand in hand, right?
a little bit for sure,
Yeah,
a little bit, yeah.
yeah. Pre-game music.
I was wide ranging. Definitely upbeat. Definitely upbeat. Anything that got me like dancing and moving my feet was something that I like to listen to. So anything from like rap to I had some country, I had some Shakira, I
Yeah,
had everything, man, in there.
yeah.
Wyclef Jean, shout out to Clef,
I
always
love
had
that.
him between the
Yeah,
ears. So
shout
yeah,
outs.
listening to
Yeah.
Clef.
I'm actually older than you,
Okay.
and I love like whenever I like get hyped up for something, I go to my old school jams like Biggie, Tupac,
Oh
like
shoot,
yeah.
you one of the ones. Okay, Megan
Ah!
knows. All right, that's what's up, Biggie.
Um, one habit young players should start today.
Stretching. Stretching is really important, guys. Like, stretch before training, after training, stretch. Take 5 or 10 minutes, joke around if you want, but run through your stretches. It's really important. Keep your injuries down.
Yeah.
And something really small and something easy that you can do that takes up not much time that goes a long way in helping you build that longevity and consistency.
I love that. Can
Yeah.
you just say that one more time? Because that is one thing I talk about with
Yeah.
Liam all the
Liam, you got to stretch, man. Listen to your mom. Stretch.
Five-a-side dream team.
Dream team. Okay, so not people that I've played with, just dream. Okay. Ronaldo, the original R9, one of my all-time favorite players. Thierry Henry, again, one of my all-time favorite players. People call me Okocha when I was young, JJ Okocha. I don't know why. I'm nowhere near the talent of the great JJ Okocha, but when I was young, some people used to call me that. So I love JJ Okocha playing behind my strikers. And then after that, Desai in there. This is random, but these are just faces that I just remember and they're so prominent growing up for me. And then Touré. So I think that's five.
Yeah.
That's five. That's my five-a-side team.
That's
Yeah,
an amazing team
it's a
right
good
there.
team. My childhood. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're running out of time. So let's just do this one final question. World Cup prediction.
USA all the way, baby. I mean, come
Ooh,
on. What are we if we're not
I
dreamers?
mean,
What are we
yeah,
if we're not dreamers? I'm dreaming in
we
in
are.
watching our team hoist the cup. I'm a believer. I'm a fan. So USA all the way, baby. Let's go.
Let's
Let's
go.
go.
We're going to end on that note.
I love it.
Thanks so much for coming in
No
today. You
problem.
are awesome. Like, we are deeply honored. And we can't wait to get your new system set up.
I'm so excited to hear what Liam thinks and how he enjoys it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.